Hi guys, it's Colette. I'm going to give you a wee reading from a chapter in my latest book, Colette Brown, Dying to Live, Death and the Afterlife. One of my favourite chapters, not read all of it, but dot in and out of it. And it's called The Spirits Gather. Again, this book is about the death process and also the afterlife, so it goes between the two. So the previous chapter I talked about a spirit called Mrs. Brodie that I saw move up to spirit and when she passed. So this chapter follows on from that. Mrs. Brodie passed in her sleep. It was gentle and peaceful. I'm sure her spirits waited for her and took her over. There are many stories about how spirits gather and are seen by someone who is in the dying process for a much longer time. These are the deaths that are due to terminal illness or non-recovery after an accident. The dying process starts long before the actual death and can be very healing time for the person who is dying and for those who are around them at the time. The dying person will sometimes talk of having been visited by someone who has already passed. These visitations can be of a parent or a beloved grandparent, sibling, or even a treasured pet. When they pass this information on to their family members, it can be a wonderfully uplifting experience. Knowing that your loved one is preparing to pass into spirit is devastating, but to know that the people they have loved wait for them and will help them safely on their journey can be such a salve. Of course, these visitations could be scientifically seen to be hallucinations as the body slows down its functions and the brain becomes dehydrated and chemically imbalanced. This is definitely a consideration. Yet the anecdotal evidence, courtesy of the stories that follow, to me, suggests that something bigger is at play and that we do have company as we prepare to pass. There are also accounts by nursing staff who sense that something sacred is happening. My own experience as a geriatric nursing auxiliary during my university summer holidays left me with total awe of end of life and how it simply wasn't chemical. The broken, worn out bodies and the confused, demented minds found a place of rest within as they moved towards their last hours. The rooms became hushed and a sacred, respected place, and the nurses went about their business in an unhurried way. This was the time when the process of dying was honoured simply by a kind word, a soothing touch, or a change of position to bring physical comfort. Sometimes a nurse would sit with a dying patient after her shift was over, or stay on and comfort the family left behind. Most nursing staff who have been part of a patient's dying process will have a story to tell of some sort of supernatural influence. As Shona, a former cardiac care nurse, says, I nursed for several years in coronary care, so I saw life and death most days. My parents died when I was in my teens, so death and being with the dying does not frighten me. It's a privilege to be with someone as they passed. There are also many, many stories of the dying talking to family spirits and also relatives at the bedside, sensing that there are spirits in the room. I hope you enjoy the stories below, and I thank everybody who shared precious moments. When my Norwegian dad died, I sat with him, and it was a precious spiritual experience for me. My dear dad said a couple of days before he went that he had a visit from his mother and his brother. They just wanted to say they were there for him. The next day, my dad said he was so glad that he had already packed his suitcases because he had just spoken with his mum over the phone and they would be here to get him tomorrow. Sure enough, he died ever so peacefully the next day. And me sitting next to him I have no words for what I felt. It was holy. And that's from Ragnhild. Let's see. My mother was present at both my aunt and my granny's passings. She described my granny as having seen those coming to collect her. She smiled, reaching out to them, asked Mom if she could see them. It was peaceful and beautiful in her eyes. My aunt was quiet as if sleeping, just took a deep breath and passed, and that's from Tina. This is one from me, which is actually a lovely story. One day, as I was finishing up my readings in Blessed Be, Jim came in and closed the door. He told me that Mary had died that morning of a heart attack. It was such an impossible thought that I asked him, Mary who? Not taking in that it could possibly be my friend. The part of Mary's story that is inspiring is actually around her death. She collapsed and her husband held her as she faded. She told him she loved him, and then she looked right over his shoulder, smiled and said one word, Mum. Then she died. I know this will give so much comfort to those of you who have lost a parent. Mary loved her mum so much, and in the end it was her mum who came to take her home. And there's loads more stories in that chapter, but I think I'll leave it at that one. If you like me reading from my books, I'm not the best reader, but I do my best. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have a similar experience or if you'd like to share. We all like reading what people share in this community. So that's from Dying to Live by me, Colette Brown, and it's on all Amazons and free on Kindle Unlimited. Many blessings now.